You've seen her, haven't you? The woman who walks alone. Perhaps she's at a cafe, lost in a book, a universe of thought contained in the quiet space around her. Perhaps you see her on a hiking trail, moving with a rhythm that seems tuned to the earth itself, not to any companion. There is a presence about her, an aura of self-possession so complete that it feels larger, somehow, than the empty space beside her where society expects someone else to be. And the world rushes to diagnose this perceived vacancy. She must be too picky. She's probably been hurt. She's damaged. She's cold, unapproachable. The labels are whispered, offered as explanations to soothe a collective discomfort. But what if that entire diagnosis, every last label, is fundamentally wrong? What if the story we've been telling ourselves about her is, in fact, a profound misunderstanding? What if I told you that her solitude is not a symptom of failure, but a sign of one of the most courageous spiritual undertakings a human being can embark upon? This is not a story about the renunciation of love. It is the story of its forging. It is the story of crafting a soul, of tempering a vessel, strong enough and whole enough to hold the immensity of a love that is true. It's about refusing to accept a half-love, a love of convenience, or a love born from emptiness. And to truly understand this silent, powerful rebellion against the superficial, we must turn away from the noise of social opinion and turn inward. We must consult one of the great architects of the modern soul, a man who charted the deep, often treacherous landscapes of our inner world, Carl Jung. For what this woman is engaged in, whether she uses these exact terms or not, is nothing less than the sacred and often perilous psychological work that Jung dedicated his life to understanding. Her solitude is not an empty room. It is the workshop of the soul. And today, we are going to step inside. So, what is the first tool we find inside this workshop? What is the primary work being done? To answer that, we must start where Jung himself started, in the dark. He gave us the key in a phrase that is as profound as it is unsettling. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This darkness he speaks of is a core concept of his entire psychology. He called it the shadow. Now, our modern ears are trained to hear shadow and think evil. This is a misunderstanding. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply everything about ourselves that we have disowned. It is the cellar of the psyche, the place we have banished every trait, impulse, and desire that we were taught was unacceptable. Think of it. As a child, you were told, "Don't be angry." So you locked your anger in the cellar. You were told, "Don't be so needy." So your vulnerability went into the cellar. Perhaps you were told, "Don't be so ambitious, so loud, so much." And so your wild, untamed power was banished to the cellar as well. Down it all goes. Our rage, our grief, our envy, our magnificent, terrifying ambition. We build a personality, a mask for the world, what Jung called the persona that is pleasant, agreeable, and acceptable. And we pretend the cellar doesn't exist, but it does. And the more we ignore what's down there, the more it governs our lives from below. It rattles the floorboards. It projects itself onto others, making us see the flaws we deny in ourselves in everyone around us. It seeps out in moments of unexplained rage, of self-sabotage, of choosing partners who embody the very traits we've repressed. The cellar, left unattended, becomes a prison that we carry inside us. And this is the sacred work the woman who walks alone is undertaking. What is she doing in that quiet apartment, on that solitary walk, in that silent corner of the cafe? She is descending the cellar stairs. Her solitude is a self-imposed vow of silence, not to the world, but to the world's endless distractions. The constant scrolling, the meaningless chit-chat, the pressure to perform a role in a relationship, all of it is noise designed to keep us from ever having to hear what's rattling below. She is choosing to turn off the noise. In that silence, for the first time, she can hear the whispers from the deep, At first, it's terrifying. The silence is deafening, but she stays. She listens. She learns to sit with the anxiety without immediately reaching for her phone. She learns to feel the raw, sharp edge of loneliness without frantically texting someone to fill the void. She is creating a safe container for the disowned parts of herself to finally speak. She learns to ask her rage, "What are you trying to protect?" She asks her envy, "What beautiful thing are you showing me that I long for?" She gives her grief the audience it has always deserved, allowing it to surface without judgment, without apology. She is not fighting her inner monsters. She is finally, bravely, meeting them. And then, the alchemy begins. This is the miracle of conscious shadow work. The moment a disowned part of you is seen, heard, and understood by your conscious mind, it stops being a monster. It stops being a saboteur. Its tormented energy is liberated, and it returns to you, not as a poison, but as a power. It is a moment of profound transmutation. The rage that once erupted destructively is now integrated, honed into a powerful, unwavering ability to set boundaries and say no with peaceful conviction. The vulnerability she was taught to hide, once embraced, becomes the very source of her empathy, her creativity, her capacity for true, authentic connection. The ambition she was shamed for is reclaimed as a life force, a drive to build a life that is authentically her own. This is the first and most crucial stage of the great work, as the alchemists called it. She is not destroying any part of herself. She is reuniting her own kingdom. She is turning the lead of her repressed pain into the gold of conscious, integrated power. But this transmutation of lead into gold is not the end of the journey. It is merely the preparation of the raw materials. It raises the ultimate question. If integrating the shadow is the first great work, what is the final masterpiece? What is the purpose of reclaiming all this conscious power? The answer is the crown jewel of Jung's entire philosophy. He called it individuation. Let's break that word down. Individuation, the state of being indivisible, the process of becoming a unified, complete individual, no longer divided against oneself. If shadow work is about reclaiming the lost pieces of your psyche from the cellar, individuation is the process of reassembling them into a coherent, authentic whole. Think of yourself as a marble sculpture. From the moment you were born, the world began to chisel away at you. Your family, your teachers, your culture, they all took their tools and chipped off pieces. They carved you into the shape they needed you to be: the good daughter, the ambitious professional, the cool girlfriend, the dependable friend. We are covered in these layers of expectation, these masks, these personas we wear to navigate the world. We become so identified with the masks that we forget the original face beneath. Individuation is the painstaking archaeological work of chipping away every single piece of marble that is not you. It is a process of subtraction, of unbecoming everything that isn't truly you, so that you can finally be you. It is the journey home to the self. And from this emerging state of wholeness, the woman who walks alone looks back at the landscape of her past relationships, and she sees them for what they so often were. She has a painful, world-shattering realization that so much of what we call love in our culture is actually a transaction of brokenness. It is the unspoken contract of the incomplete. It's the "you complete me" myth sold to us in 1,000 songs and movies. It's the subtle, unconscious deal. I will be the missing piece that validates you, if you will be the missing piece that distracts me from my own emptiness. I will overlook your shadows if you overlook mine. I will perform the role you need me to play, if you will give me the approval I cannot yet give myself. She remembers the times she shrank herself to make a partner feel bigger, the times she silenced her own intuition to keep the peace, the times she betrayed her own needs in the desperate hope of being chosen. She understands that she has signed these contracts before, and she has paid the price with the currency of her own soul. And so, she refuses. This refusal is not born from arrogance or bitterness. It is born from a profound and hard-won self-respect. Her no is not a rejection of love. It is a rejection of the contract. It is a sacred refusal to ever again break herself into two pieces in the hope that another fragmented person might make her feel whole. And so she retreats, not into hiding, but into the forge. Her solitude becomes the alchemical crucible. In the searing heat of this focused self-inquiry, and under the immense pressure of the silence, all impurities are burned away. All that is not authentic can no longer survive. In the forge, there is no one else to blame. There is no relationship drama to distract. There is only the self, reflected back in the unforgiving mirror of the four walls around her. And it is here that she must learn the most difficult and most liberating skills of all. She must learn to self-validate. She learns to celebrate a personal victory without needing an audience to applaud. She learns that the world's approval is a fleeting drug, while her own self-respect is the bedrock of her existence. She must learn to self-soothe. She learns how to hold her own hand through a wave of grief. She learns to be her own calm anchor in a storm of anxiety, breathing through the fear until it passes, knowing that she does not need to outsource her sense of safety to another person. She must learn to be her own source of joy. She cultivates a rich inner world. She finds delight in her own thoughts, her own hobbies, her own presence. Her own company becomes not a punishment, but a preference. She is no longer looking for a better half, because she now understands that this entire concept is an insult to the journey she is on. A half cannot truly love another half. It can only cling. Only a whole can truly love another whole. And she is busy. She is engaged in the sacred, terrifying, glorious work of becoming whole. But what does it truly mean to be whole? For Jung, wholeness was never about achieving a state of singular, sterile perfection. It was about the dynamic, courageous union of opposites. Within the vast landscape of the human psyche, he observed that we are all psychologically bisexual. Within every man there exists an inner feminine, a soul image he called the anima. And within every woman, there exists an inner masculine principle, a bridge to the world of logic, courage, and decisive action. He called it the animus. Like the shadow, the animus can be unconscious and destructive. A woman possessed by a negative animus is often plagued by a council of harsh inner critics. It's that voice in her head that whispers, "You're not smart enough for that. Who do you think you are?" It can manifest as a rigid, argumentative nature, spouting cold, hard opinions without any connection to feeling or heart. For centuries, culture has conditioned women to believe that their animus, their access to logic, to structure, to worldly power lived outside of them. She was taught to find it in a man. She projected this inner figure onto her father, then her husband, then her boss. She looked for a man to think for her, to decide for her, to fight her battles for her. She outsourced her own inner masculine, leaving her dependent on the men in her life for her sense of direction and intellectual validation. This left her vulnerable, and it prevented her from ever truly becoming whole. But the woman in the forge, she is doing something profoundly revolutionary. She is breaking this ancient, unconscious contract. She is calling her animus home. This is the next great stage of her journey. It is a conscious, deliberate cultivation of her own inner masculine energy. This is not about becoming like a man. It is about integrating her full humanity. She starts to listen to her own thoughts with new respect. When faced with a complex decision, she no longer immediately seeks outside counsel. She does her own research. She learns. She trusts her own capacity for reason. The voice of the animus, once a harsh critic, is now retrained to become a wise, strategic advisor. When someone crosses a boundary, she no longer shrinks back, hoping a hero will intervene. She finds her own inner sword of clarity. She learns to speak her truth calmly, firmly, and without apology, not from a place of reactive anger, but from a place of deep, logical self-respect. She becomes the hero of her own story because she is finally wielding her own sword. She builds her own shelf. She manages her own finances. She maps out her own career path. Each act of independent, reasoned competence is an act of integrating her animus. She is no longer waiting for a knight in shining armor to rescue her from the tower, because she is busy discovering that she is the architect, the builder, and the sovereign ruler of the tower herself. And as she does this, as she reclaims this vital part of her own soul, a deep tectonic shift occurs in her relational universe. The very laws of attraction that once governed her life are rewritten. Because she no longer needs a man to be her father, she stops being attracted to paternalistic, controlling men. Because she no longer needs a man to be her intellectual guru, she is no longer impressed by men who lecture, but by men who listen. Because she no longer needs a man to be her savior, her rescuer, or her financial plan, she becomes utterly uninterested in men who want to play those roles. Her newfound wholeness becomes a filter. It quietly repels those who seek a dependent, and it acts as a luminous beacon to those who are on a similar path. She is no longer looking for a man to complete her. The very idea has become absurd. She now seeks a peer, an equal, a conscious partner to walk beside her, a fellow traveler on the soul's great journey. And so, we return to her. The woman we met at the beginning, sitting alone in the quiet dignity of her own presence. But now, we see her differently. We see her through the lens of the journey. Where the world sees an absence, we now understand there is a formidable presence. Where the world perceives loneliness, we now recognize a sacred and chosen solitude. We see a woman who has done the terrifying work of descending into the cellar of her own psyche and has chosen not to flee but to listen. A woman who has stood in the alchemical fire of self-confrontation and refused to melt, emerging not hardened but integrated. What we are witnessing is not a woman who has failed at love. We are witnessing a woman who has succeeded at the far more difficult task of becoming herself. She has dived into the underworld of her own story and returned, not empty-handed, but with the pearls of hard-won wisdom. Her peace is not emptiness. It is a profound fullness. Her silence is not weakness. It is a contained and conscious power. She has become the sovereign ruler of her own inner kingdom. And what of love then? Does this path lead to a life devoid of partnership? It leads to a life where partnership is finally possible in its truest form. The love that might meet her now, if it comes, will not be a rescue. It will be a resonance. It will not arrive to complete her, but to celebrate her completeness. It will not be a merger of two needy halves, but a dance of two sovereign wholes. It will be a connection born not from the question, "What can you give me that I lack?" but from the statement, "I see the universe you have built within yourself, and it resonates with the universe I have built within my own." Let us be clear. This path is not the easy way. The easy way is distraction, dependency, and the endless performance of social roles. The path of individuation is the path of the spiritual warrior. It demands a courage that most cannot fathom, the courage to disappoint others rather than betray oneself. The courage to sit in the fire of uncertainty, the courage to be misunderstood. This journey isn't for everyone, but for those who are called to it, it is not truly a choice. It is a destiny. It is the soul's inexorable pull towards its own evolution. And a woman who answers this call becomes a quiet revolution of one. She is a disruptive force, not because she is loud, but because her very existence proves that a woman's worth is not contingent on her relationship status. She proves that wholeness is available, and that is a dangerous and beautiful truth in a world that so often profits from our sense of being broken. And now, I turn to you. As you've listened to this, was there a part of the journey that felt familiar? A phrase that landed with the unmistakable weight of truth? A quiet ache of recognition in your own soul? Perhaps you know this woman. Or perhaps, deep down, you are her. If any part of this story has resonated with you, know that it is not an accident. It is an invitation from the deepest part of yourself to begin your own archaeological dig. an invitation to honor your own need for solitude, for introspection, for the courageous work of becoming who you truly are. This channel is more than a place to watch videos. We are building a space here, a digital campfire for souls who are tired of the shallow end of the pool. So please, join this conversation. Share a thought, an insight, or a piece of your own story in the comments below. Your wisdom is a valuable part of this community, and if you wish to continue walking this path together, to explore more of these deep, life-altering ideas, then I invite you to subscribe and to click the bell so you don't miss our future journeys. The work is not easy, but you do not have to do it entirely alone. The journey inward is the greatest adventure there is. Let's continue to explore it together.